and now the Muslim Brotherhood. This next year, I think, is going to be extremely important in terms of our struggle. We're coming up in 2 or 3 days to the anniversary of the 25th of January, which will be the start of another wave. And certainly in the last few months, we've seen a kind of real clarity in terms of an opposition, a mounting and growing opposition to the Muslim Brotherhood. But one thing I would say, and I don't know if either will want to say something about this as well, but one thing I would say in terms of how to characterize the issue around the Muslim Brotherhood, and I think you see this very much so in the character of Mehdi in the film and the journey that he goes through, is that the issue is really in the formation of the state. It's in the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood, leave the Islamic aspect of it aside, have used the tools of democracy to institutionalize dictatorship, and that's what they've done with this recent constitution. And people within the Brotherhood are against that. And people across the country are against that. And obviously that's not going to deliver the demands that the people have been fighting for in this revolution. And so, a sort of peculiar way of putting it, but it's really the turbulence that protects us. Which is to say that while things are turbulent, they remain dangerous for those in authority to clamp down. When they try and enforce their authority, they know that they're going to get their knuckles wrapped in one way or another. And so I think we will remain in that dynamic until we start to see real evidence of what people have died for, thousands of people have died for, and many, been injured and so on for, till we begin to see that being realized.
I agree with everything that Khaled said. I would also like to add that for me, I don't fear the Muslim Brotherhood because they're fundamentalists. I fear them because they are pro-capitalism, and that's not what the revolution was about. They are the same regime somehow. They just have beards. That's it. But they're using the same methods, economically and politically. Also, because people now are really frightened about the freedom of speech, the freedom of whatever we're going to wear, and women's rights, and so on and so forth. And I think during Mubarak's time, it was the same. We had censorship on arts. We couldn't wear whatever we want to wear. Women's right was did not exist. So I don't think that they're really that different from what Mubarak was. They're just a new kind of, they look different, but that's it. And once people realize, that there's no work, there's no food, there's no transportation, it's the same old life, then I think they're really going to go back in the streets much stronger than even before, because after losing a lot of people and after having a very unstable life for 2 years, you expect some change. And people went and voted for Morsi. They thought that they really participated in the democratic thing, and then once they realized that it's not the case, I think it's going to be even fiercer than what happened to Mubarak.
First, ask the question. I want to know what happened to your father, if he's still in good health, and I also want to know how much you had to repost things online with the censorship you had to deal with, posting things on YouTube and getting the message out. How is it necessary to get the message out to the internet?
My father's very well. He had a liver transplant this year, which was successful, so that's a great thing. In terms of in terms of the internet and in terms of censorship, the internet isn't really censored. That's the truth. The internet is really the place in which you can pretty much post anything that you want. The state media and private media are in much more so, and they're very powerful. You're talking about a country which doesn't have full penetration of internet. But the way that it works is, whereas it should be the case that those in power are afraid to abuse that power lest they be held accountable, it's actually the other way around. The state is organized such that when you claim your rights, you're afraid that you will be abused and put in prison. That's the kind of structure of the legal system, if you like. So there is always a pressure on you to remain silent. And that is exactly what the entire country, regardless of people, whether it's people who are, like my organisation Mosorin, or like many countless other, fearless filmmakers and activists who are out there, posting stuff online, or, going out and screening in their neighbourhoods or whatever. The pressure on you is to keep silent, and that's exactly what people aren't doing. Or at least what happens is that they don't do it, and then they get, they fight for a very long time, and then they get exhausted. And then what happens, and this is the really important thing, and you see this rhythm in the film, and then they get depressed. And then that depression turns into a kind of anger, and then something happens and they explode. And I think we're going to, keep seeing that cycle repeat and repeat until things settle.